Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me for a daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This wonderful sound calls us back to our true home. The third mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I vow to cultivate responsibility and learn ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. I'm determined not to engage in sexual relations without love and a long-term commitment. To preserve the happiness of myself and others, I'm determined to respect my commitments and the commitments of others. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. For our Dharma lessons, we've been reading Abundant, Exalted, Immeasurable by Ajahn Pasanno, and we're beginning Chapter 4, Introduction to Metta Meditation. Loving kindness is not separated from what you are feeling in the body. When we reflect on loving kindness and use it as a meditation, it's good to reflect on its foundation. One of the ways that Ajahn Sumedho describes this is not dwelling in aversion. That's a helpful way to look at loving kindness. In the Noble Eightfold Path, there is samma sankappa, right intention or right thought. There are three aspects of this. Nekkhamma sankappa, the aspect of renunciation or not drifting into sensuality. Abhayagiri sankappa, not thinking with ill will or aversion. And avihimsa sankappa, thoughts of non-harming. The last two are often equated with loving kindness and compassion. For loving kindness to arise, there have to be thoughts of non-ill will, non-aversion. These thoughts are fundamentally simple. We often think to ourselves, I should be thinking these sublime thoughts of love for all beings everywhere. But it's a great start if you could just not get averse to other beings. It's easier to begin this way as well. You can then encourage yourself along the way. Encouraging ourselves is very important. That in itself is an act of loving kindness, encouraging ourselves in something skillful. Bhante Gunaratana tells a lovely story. He was going to teach in Europe, and when it was getting close to the time that he was to leave, the person who invited him called and asked him, "What do you teach?" He said, "I teach mindfulness, I teach vipassana." And she said, "You don't teach loving kindness, do you? I hate loving kindness." In actual fact, loving kindness is a major foundation for Bhante Ji's teachings. The reason why the sponsor hated loving kindness was she felt that she was supposed to have it for everybody. She had been through the Second World War and being Jewish had lost many family members and her culture. So she had the hope, you aren't going to get me to do loving kindness. However, when you reflect on loving kindness, you realize that not to dwell in aversion is an act of great kindness to yourself. The reality is that the very first person to receive any of the loving kindness you're able to conjure up in your heart is you, whether it's directed to yourself or not. Classically, the way the instructions were set up from the time of the earliest commentaries on the Buddhist teachings, when loving kindness meditation was structured and systematized, was to direct loving kindness towards yourself. You establish loving kindness towards yourself before going on to generate loving kindness for somebody else. This has a very strong psychological foundation. You can't really share anything until your cup is full, or at least until there is something in your cup. So you should direct attention to the cultivation and bring into being thoughts of loving kindness towards yourself. We can complicate this with feelings of uncertainty, doubt, or guilt. Maybe I shouldn't be doing it towards myself because I'm not worthy. One of the monks in Australia, Ajahn Brahmavamso, teaches people that if you can't start with yourself, start with anything that evokes a feeling of loving kindness, a little puppy, a kitten, anything like that. Because in reality, the cultivation of loving kindness is not the repeating of the words and phrases. It's about the actual experience of loving kindness, warmth, acceptance, openness, the feeling tone of the heart, including concern for the happiness of yourself and others. It's about generating that feeling. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me today.